Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of the Infinite Danger Room podcast, hosted at News OK. We are here at Speeding Bullet Comics. I'm with Anthony Brown and Chris Borthick, and we've got, let's just say this is a little bit of a nerdy episode. This is the X-Men Fantasy Draft episode. We're each going to pick a 7-member X-Men team, X-Men, X-Factor, Excalibur, whatever, what have you. Merry Marvel Mutant team. We're each going to draft a player, tell a little bit about why, and then we're each going to end up with a 7-person or 7-mutant roster at the end of the podcast. So that's kind of what we're talking about. I was a big X-Men fan, probably late 80s, early 90s was probably my heyday. I kind of enjoy the Outback era. I don't know, Chris, do you have a favorite X-Men era or a time that you were drawn particularly to the X-Men?
About the time that they were doing Excalibur and all the different, all that different era is when I was really into X-Men.
All right, and then Anthony, when were you? I mean, you've been an X-Men guy kind of all the time, but when's maybe one of your favorite eras?
My favorite era would probably be the mid to late 90s when they did Blue Gold. Kind of the Jim Lee era when they introduced, Gambit, Bishop, those characters. Although, I'm fond of Claremont's early run, the Giant Size X-Men, where they introduced a lot of great characters as well. So for me, I own every issue of Uncanny X-Men against my wife's wishes. But so for me, they're my favorite comic, that and Fantastic Four, so the entire era of X-Men, regardless of what's going on, I'm addicted and I just keep going back regardless of how I feel about the stories. I don't miss it on a Wednesday if it's coming out.
All right, so we're going to do a snake style draft, which means the person at the end will then pick again and flip it back the other way. Anthony, because you have the most issues of X-Men, you're going to pick last in the first round. Chris, you will go first, and then I'll go second, and Anthony, you'll go last, and then we'll flip it around for the next round, and then we'll go back and forth that direction. So we'll have about 2 minutes to make a selection, or really you'll have probably as long as the person in front of you can talk about why they picked the character they picked, because we're not just going to sit here on a whole lot of dead air. We hope. But that's the deal. I don't know if do we need any rule clarifications? Are ultimate versions eligible? Is it just one version of the character? Can you pick alternate timeline versions of the character if it comes up? Do you just want to have this argument if it happens?
I would say 616 only, right? Because what ultimate versions of the Ultimate X-Men title existed, but was there anything or anyone of any significance or import that came out of the Ultimate X-Men run?
I think he's just asking in case he wants to have Wolverine too.
Okay, for now we'll say 616,
right,
and we'll see if we run into any trouble doing this. So we've got.
Do you consider the Exiles part of the 616?
Well, that's a good question. What would you think, since you're probably the most expert of us? Would you think they count or that they should not count?
I think they should. There are some good characters that came out of that run. They also pulled 616 characters into it, so
alternate timelines, yes.
Right.
Ultimate timeline, no.
Correct.
Okay, that's what we're going to go with.
Basically one so if Wolverine gets drafted, period, right?
No Wolverine and Old Man Logan.
Exactly.
Even though Old Man Logan is kind of from a different timeline.
Exactly.
No Cyclops and young Cyclops from All New X-Men. You can't do that either.
Exactly.
Okay. Right. I'll stick with that for now.
Okay.
You could actually have a team in Marvel Universe that had 2 Angels on it right now, though, if you wanted to.
Yeah.
But it's a little ridiculous, so we're not going to do it for the draft.
Exactly.
All right. Chris, you are on the clock for a first-round draft pick. Who would you like to take as the initial X-Men in our X-Men fantasy draft?
Well, I'm probably going to take Wolverine because, I've always liked the character from his 4-issue limited series on to Kitty Pryde and Wolverine and on up and into his movie incarnations played by Hugh Jackman. So, to me, he's just a great character, and the more they fleshed him out as a longer-lived character, I think the more interesting he's become. So, he's my number 1 pick.
All right, Wolverine off the board first. I get the second pick. I'm taking Storm as my number 1 pick. I think she's a great leader. I love when she has the mohawk. I think that's awesome. as much as I like Cyclops in a lot of ways, I think Storm is maybe the best leader of the X-Men, and her powers are pretty tough. I mean, she's got a wide-ranging ability of powers. So, for those reasons, I am taking Storm with my first-round pick.
My first round pick is my favorite X-Man, and that is Havoc. One of the second of three Summers brothers. For whatever reason, I kind of relate to that character. Actually, not for whatever reason. My big sister was kind of like Cyclops growing up, where she had all the acclaim and renown, and it just so happened after I fell in love with that character that my life kind of mirrored his, where it's just like people know me as my sister's younger brother, so when people ask me who my favorite comic book character is, I'm like, my favorite character is Havoc. He's Cyclops' younger brother. So, but I love that he was in, X-Men First Class. In those movies, I felt like they did a good job of representing the character. He was pretty cool. I think he's pretty cool and awesome, and he's more powerful than Cyclops. So, and I just love the character and everything he brings. I think he's a good leader. He has some confident issues, but every leader needs a flaw or a fault. Storm has claustrophobia. Wolverine has his anger issues. So I mean, to me, we have three great leaders between our three teams, but they also have some flaws that they can fall back on.
All right, and you are back on the clock immediately for a second pick because we're doing this backward-forward style.
So my second pick is actually going to be Kitty Pryde. She brings some intelligence, but she also, to me, is kind of the heart of the X-Men. So I think that she also can serve on some covert ops kind of deal and do some infiltration. She also is a great character that, any other males that I put on the team can play off of, have love interest in, and everything else, because who doesn't like Kitty Pryde? So, there may be a chance that Colossus shows up, so I can have that inner dynamic going, or we may have her, chase someone else for a change.
Okay, I'm on the clock for my round 2 pick. It is Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler's my round 2 pick, mostly because I like him a lot, but he's also, I think, tactically very sound. You have a teleporter, you can get in and out of places, you can move people around. But yeah, I like the fact he's such a, he's got a lot of heart as a character. He's always trying to reconcile sort of his faith and his appearance and his interactions with humanity, and all that kind of appeals to me. So, Nightcrawler, one of my favorite X-Men, definitely is my number 2 pick.
Well, my number 2 pick would be Jean Grey, Phoenix. I don't know. I think I was, when I was reading the X-Men, of course, the fall of Jean Grey was the big thing, and then for years and years and years there was nothing, and then they brought her back, and I just think she's a great character, and the love triangle that usually ensues between her and Wolverine and Cyclops is always interesting and always fraught with some interesting story arcs. So, and she's cosmically powered, so what more do you want?
Fair enough.
All right, and you get to immediately pick again.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, let's see.
I really did a good job putting myself in the middle.
You did. You did. Let's see. Who would I pick? So jealous you took Kitty Pryde, because that means you get Lockheed. That's not right. I'm gonna take Colossus because I like the Big Russian. He's another one of my favorite characters from the classic giant size era. So I always think that he being from a different culture, and when they've played that up and done some story arcs with him, along with the Kitty Pryde stuff, he's been just an interesting guy. Plus, Wolverine and Colossus together equals the fastball special.
That's good. You did get the fastball special in there. Okay, I was either going to take Colossus or Rogue, so I guess that means I'm taking Rogue. I feel like I need a physically strong person. She does have the benefit of also having flight. Works well with Storm, has worked with Storm before, so, I guess they all kind of have, but she's been on a team with Storm quite a bit. So I feel pretty good with Rogue as my number 3 pick. Gives me a lot of mobility. I've got a very mobile team, but also one that I think has pretty good chemistry so far.
Gotcha. So my next pick is actually going to be Darwin. He popped up in X-Men Deadly Genesis, but he was also in the Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire. He also had a stint on X Factor. To me, he's I enjoyed him in the X-Men Deadly Genesis, and I kind of wish that all those characters didn't die. Sway and Petra seem like they would have been great characters to get to know over the course of that, but his purpose and his function during X-Men Deadly Genesis really made him appeal to me as a character. Also, again, his representation in X-Men First Class, it was a shame that he died so early, but he seemed like he was a really, really cool guy in that movie, and they did some fun things with him as a character. So I think that he gives us the adaptability again to go into any situation, or if our teams were to fight, he can give me, a Swiss Army knife to play with in these battles.
Okay, and boom, round 4, kicking off round 4.
My next pick is going to be Psylocke. I need a telepath. I also need a ninja. So, why not get them both in the same shot? Also, again, her past is so rich, but also, she's got an edge to her. She was really during the Outback era. She was a character that could fight but really didn't. Then she went through the Siege Perilous, got a new body, became the ninja Psylocke that seduced Cyclops even though he already had a wife, and that whole thing at the beginning of the Jim Lee era, or the regular X-Men, the non-adjective X-Men. And so that character was really appealing to me, and what she's done with Archangel, the way that they developed her moving forward, I just really enjoy the character.
Okay. I have a pick that makes more sense tactically, and I have a pick that makes more sense fandomly. I think I'm going to go tactically and take Emma Frost. She's been bad, but she's been good, but she's been a X-Man now for about as long as she was ever a villain. And again, I think she both has physical acumen for fighting, and she's got the ability to sort of do your telepathic link for your team. It really came down to, as far as on a telepath, you've got, Professor X and Sage and a few others still out there, but which one brings the most to the team that I felt like I had was Emma Frost. So that's who I'm going with in my 4th round pick.
Okay. All right, well, 4th round for me, equally controversial.
Okay.
Magneto.
Nice. I mean, powerhouse,
and then jumping into my 5th, probably Forge, who we don't necessarily hear a lot from, but the Gadgeteers. So just imagine in this crazy comic book world where Jean Grey can link Forge to Magneto, and Magneto can build Forge's machines with magnetism almost instantly. I mean, that would be cool.
That's good. All right, now I'm doing my fanboy pick that doesn't really tactically do anything for my team. I'm going to take Gambit.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes some people like him, some people can't stand him, but I kind of enjoy him, so I'm going to take him just for that reason, pretty much.
So, for me, my next pick, he has served on the X-Men teams. I know this is very controversial because I actually enjoyed this run, but I'm going to take Juggernaut.
Ooh, that is a controversial pick. Yeah.
I actually love Juggernaut, the character. When they brought Havoc back from the quasi-dead, and he was on Havoc's team during the wedding of Havoc and Polaris, and at the end of that story, he hits Polaris over the head with a tree and says, "You said I was on your team, right?" So, because at the beginning of the story, or it was a 2-part story, in the first part of it, they were trying to decide whose team Juggernaut was going to be on, and Havoc said, I'll take Juggernaut, he can be on my team. And so at the end of the wedding, where Havoc leaves Polaris at the aisle for someone else, Juggernaut, basically to end Polaris' rampage and her losing her mind and flipping out on everyone, hits her over the head with a tree, and he said, "I'm on your team, but we may get Fish Boy back into the equation as well." Or actually, he got killed, but he was a good character, and I enjoyed his time on the X-Men. And there are some other powerhouses that could be had, but I really enjoy having Juggernaut on here, and you guys have some, anti-heroes on your team, so I figured I needed one as well.
All right.
My next pick, I think that I'm trying to debate on whether I want to keep it in the family and go with Rachel, but I already have a telepath in Psylocke. I'm a fan of the older Madrox that wasn't the X Factor Investigations guy, so I'm actually going to flip this and go a whole nother way and get some fighting power and go with Cannonball. I've never seen Havoc and Cannonball on the same team, but Sam Guthrie is a guy that I am very fond of now that he's a father. Who's to say that his kid won't have mutant powers, or his wife might not show up, who actually serves in the Shi'ar Imperial Guard. So, that gives a good excuse for Gladiator to maybe show up, or them to get some interplay and go into space and go visit Corsair and see what the Space Jammers are doing now. So I'll take Cannonball with my next pick.
All right, very good. Well, you mentioned Rachel, so I think that means she is eligible. I was debating whether she'd be eligible being from an alternate future. I do have a telepath in the Frost already, but she is a great character, so she's certainly somebody to think about on this pick. I'm trying to think what I don't necessarily have. You've got Gambit for hand-to-hand combat. You've got Emma Frost for a telepath. Rogue is kind of a physical brawler. Nightcrawler, espionage, or taking things out from a distance. And then Storm for leadership and also pretty good power set. So I don't feel like I'm missing a lot. I'm also trying to think about team chemistry. Who do I need somebody for a different type of team chemistry than I have, or how would she mix in with that? I think saying all that, I'm going to go ahead and take Phoenix, the Excalibur Phoenix, as my sixth pick, just based on the fact that she's a huge power set that nobody has off the board yet, and even if she's duplicative of Emma Frost in some ways, that's okay. And plus, she's just a really, I don't know if you guys have read that Excalibur run, she's a really good character. So
she also has, some beef with Emma Frost because she never seems to let it rest at like, hey, you split up my mom and dad. So
yeah, it gives you some reason for a little bit of tension. You want to have a little bit of tension on your team.
Exactly. So also it looks like, just from looking at your lineup versus mine anyway, it looks like your book is more likely to get written and published than mine is when you throw these characters in here. So,
all right. Well, my sixth pick is going to be an old fan favorite of mine. I always like to watch him on the Spider-Man cartoon, Iceman.
Oh yeah, Iceman's a good pick.
He's always got a lot of going on, especially recently. But I'm an old fan of Iceman. The ice slide thing, like when I was a kid and I saw that on the cartoons, I was just like, I want to be able to do that. I wish I could make my own ice slide and just slide all over town. Wouldn't that be fun? He's got some history with Jean Grey, so that'll be good. There's probably some tension with Magneto trying to team up, so that'll be an interesting time. My seventh pick, since it turns right around for me again, I'm going to put his old friend Beast in there with him. So I kind of have a classic thing going on here. I got some brain children in Beast and Forge. So I always love the Beast. Also, he gives us a nice tie to the Avengers should we ever want to do like a little crossover or anything like that, or use his Avengers clearance. So.
Okay, this is my last pick.
Yeah.
Well, there's several characters I like.
Maybe we should open it up to 8 because I've got 2 characters.
You got 2 characters. Well, why don't we pick an alternate?
Okay.
Go 8 rounds. We'll pick an alternate. I'm going to go with Cable.
Okay.
If for some reason Storm's taken out of the fight, he's a good secondary leader. Can he work for Storm? I guess we'll see. But I felt like it's interesting to have him and Phoenix on the same team. They're sort of alternate brother and sister almost. Something you can kind of play with a little bit. Do they have how do they interplay with each other? So kind of as a deputy leader, I'm picking Cable as my my last official pick before we get into the alternates.
Gotcha. So, okay, so that was my question: is this going to be like the Avengers reserves or the Avengers alternates, where they pick a main lineup and then it's like you guys are our alternates in the event that Black Panther's in Wakanda and he can't serve, so we call D-Man in from the reserve. So. If that's the case, then I guess I can't. You can't have Havoc without Polaris. So I'll go ahead and throw her in on the team. So I feel like that rounds us out a great bit. But also we can see if I were to write this book and Havoc and Kitty or Havoc and Psylocke were to start to hook up or something like that, how Polaris would deal with that. One of the things that I'm really disappointed in is the way that they've written her sanity of late. Like it kind of, she teeters back and forth on being insane or whether she's not. I would just like for them to build her up and make her own character. And develop her as a person. The most recent X Factor run that had her, Quicksilver, Gambit, and the guy that's currently drawing the Flash, whose name Carmine D whatever. I really enjoyed that title. She was kind of served as an anti-hero in that, and you could tell that she was really kind of angry and things like that. But I would love to see them just develop her as a character a little bit more and make her more of an individual as opposed to someone that waffles between sanity.
Okay. 2 alternates, and we'll go pick your first alternate, we'll go around, then we'll do second alternate, and then you'll get the last pick of all.
My first alternate is Justice. He's a mutant. He's never been an X-Man, but I feel like his time with the X-Man needs to be here. With the dwindling number of mutants around the comic universe, right? I feel like they should band together. I feel like he can bring a lot to the table, but also he can bring kind of his lightheartedness and his purity, because even though he's killed someone, he killed his his father and went to jail over that, he's still seen as kind of a pure hero. He's hung out with Speedball and some other characters when he was on his redemption tour and things like that. He tried to get the New Warriors back together and it just didn't work. So to me, Justice is a character who I feel like should have been introduced to the X-Men universe a long time ago but hasn't, and I feel like he could do some great things in an X-Men book.
Okay, my alternate, both of the people I'm thinking about for alternates right now have had periods in their history that I don't like their characters, but I'm going to say, am I taking them from the era in which I enjoyed them? Can I sort of ignore the periods in which I didn't enjoy them?
You get to write them, right?
I guess so. So my alternate, I'll take Bishop. I'm going to take him because I've got a Bishop action figure on my desk. I'm going to take him from before he kind of went nuts. I don't even know if he's back bad or good again now. But I'm going to take Bishop as my alternate based on his power set and saying somebody who's trying to help stop a future, coming for a future where he's trying to stop things from going awry. And I mean, hey, I'll have Cable from the future, Rachel from the future, Bishop from the future. They can all decide what future they want to actually live in.
Well, he is back to being sane and back in the world of the right. He has 2 regular arms. He no longer has the bionic arm that was eaten off in the Messiah Complex. In the Messiah Complex series or whatever issue that he lost his arm, but he hasn't really been seen since the end of the X-Force title that he was in, the Uncanny, or I think it was Uncanny X-Force, I forget, but when they had 3 or 4 different X-Force titles, there was Cable in the X-Force, and I want to say Uncanny X-Force. He appeared in Uncanny X-Force, but he hasn't been seen since. He didn't die at the end of it, but so that he is around, and I loved him as a character, but with this team, I didn't feel like he fit in.
I'm really wondering how I'm going to write it, but we'll see. I've got a bunch of people from the future. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, Chris, your alternate. And you're actually going to pick both of them, so alternate.
Jeez. I'm trying to think. I really started to have this classic theme with mine. All the originals are on my team, and I love Angel, especially the metallic winged version of Angel, so he's probably my alternate.
Okay.
Let's see, and then I don't know. I feel like Cyclops gets no love in our picks because nobody's picked Cyclops.
I was debating taking him in that last round.
But I also, I don't know. Why not give Wolverine a chance on my team anyway? So I'm going to go with Sunspot.
Okay.
because I like that character.
He's powerful.
He's really powerful. He's got a lot of potential. I think he could be a fun character, so that would be my pick.
And he can bankroll your team, right?
He can bankroll the team. He and Angel maybe both. So,
Well, let me give Scott a chance. I'll take Cyclops as my second alternate. Just he'll come in if he needs to. I prefer. I mean, if this draft had been 10 years ago, I definitely would have picked him earlier. I just I don't know that I've enjoyed him as much since he's been mutant terrorist or whatever he is now. He's sort of more. But there's certainly versions of Cyclops I've liked quite a bit. I mean, he always gets played a little bit as a jerk because, oh, hey, you're married, you got a kid. Oh, guess what? Your ex-girlfriend's back. Better leave your wife. I mean, there's always elements where he's been, through things probably outside of the character's control, more editorial fiat, he's been made to be kind of a jerk. Yeah. But, he's definitely worth taking as an alternate. He's one of the most experienced X-Men, so.
But, so here's my issue with Cyclops, right? Like, and I guess Marvel in the way that they do this in general, right? So Cyclops is held accountable, or is going to be held accountable for killing Professor X, even though he was possessed by, a universal power, right? Like the Phoenix is allegedly part of, the balance of life and death and all that stuff that they say about the Phoenix every time she pops up in a comic.
Mm-hmm.
But Wolverine has killed an infinite number of people, and he hasn't had to answer for a single one of those crimes yet, except for the villains of the people that he's killed. So that's kind of my issue with the way that they treat the character. I appreciate Cyclops' leadership, what he stands for, what he's done. Even though I hated that they ended X-Men with 544, I love the way that... I love the last couple of pages of it, where he's boxing up the stuff, and there's a picture of the original 5, and the last lines where one of his last lines where I finally feel like I graduated, while he's looking at that picture, because they're ending the title and he's ready to move on, and they just kind of graduate, and he's graduated on to other things. To me, he is the embodiment of Professor X's dream, and he's what his dream is carried out to its ultimate end, right? Like, so, Professor X was raising soldiers. He raised the ultimate soldier in Cyclops, and now here he is with all his faults, because the guy that mentored you is also the guy that, sent your other brother that you didn't know exist into the jungle that had you kidnapped, or, that took you hostage and had you killed, and had him killed. He sent you on an infinite number of missions, lied about, the purpose and the reasons why you were really doing some of the stuff you were doing just to protect his own interests, and then people have a problem with you being screwed up in the end. So, for the character, I have no issue with him. I actually love him more and more as kind of an anti-hero Cyclops, as opposed to the, rigid guy that he was, because it gives him a little bit more flavor as opposed to being, the guy that's by the book all the time. So I love it. I love what they've done with him. I hate that he's dead.
Well, we think. You never know what's going to happen, right?
Right.
When Bucky came back, everybody comes back.
Exactly.
Except Captain Marvel. I'm not bitter about it.
Well, that's for the Avengers draft, right?
Right.
So, my last character would be Firestar. She recently popped up in an X-Men book with the return of Nightcrawler. They even did a fun Spider-Man and Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends issue where it was Spider-Man, Firestar, and Iceman all hanging out on a road trip, and to me that was a lot of fun. I think that, again, Justice and Firestar are two characters that are mutants, well-known mutants, that deserve to have some time with the X-Men and be developed as part of that universe, especially since it looks like the Inhumans are moving in on the X-Men's turf to become the predominant, non-natural superheroes, or, however Marvel wants to phrase this, but since the X-Men are in exile until their movie rights return to Marvel, I think that all the mutants need to stick together, and I think that Firestar was pretty good in the limited time that she had in that title in Amazing X-Men, so I'd love to see her back with the X-Men moving forward and see what they can do to flesh her out and create a niche for her and Justice in the X-Men universe.
All right, so we've got our teams. We got 7 and 2 alternates. What do you think, Chris? Would these books sell? Would you be interested in them? Or you feel pretty good about the team you ended up with?
Well, I like my team. I think
you got all the originals except for Cyclops, actually.
Yeah, I know, right? And I mean, Magneto would be like your tension in the team, and I think Forge was an interesting character when they were using him, and Sunspot's naturally volatile. So I mean, I don't know. I feel like this could be an interesting group. They would be a more techie sort of public group. I think they aren't necessarily super stealthy, with the exception of Wolverine, but that's okay. But I think they would be fun. And you've got your future team.
I've got I mean, yeah, there are definitely some elements to have like time travel stories in this, which I like time travel stories. So, with Phoenix and Cable and Bishop all strongly in that category. And yeah, I've got a couple. I've got a couple of Excalibur alumni. I've got a couple from kind of the Outback era, which I enjoy. A couple from sort of Cable from X-Force. I guess that's the only kind of the guy from mainly a non-X team. I mean, a non-X-Men team. Although he was on the X-Men for a bit, but he's mainly been an X-Force guy. Right. I don't know. I think this is an interesting lineup. I think there definitely would be some conflict between some of these characters. With Cyclops and two of his potential children, I mean, on the team, and then Storm has got a history with Bishop to some degree. So I think there'd be an interesting way to write some stories of these guys. I feel pretty good about this team. I don't know. What do you think, Anthony?
I love my team as well. Out of all three of our lineups, I think both of your books get made, and mine is like, well, we'll think about getting around to it, right? Because it's an eclectic mix of characters, but I feel like I've got some main X-Men staples in Kitty Pryde, in Psylocke, but there are also two characters that or actually all of my characters. I mean, which of them has had the most staying power in an X title, right? I mean, only Cannonball, but that's never been on a flagship title. That's been
Havoc was the lead X Factor guy for probably several years.
You got Psylocke. She's awesome.
So, but I mean, like the X-Men title, like they've both been mainstays in offshoots, but they've never been mainstays
in X-Men. Was Havoc? He was in during a lot of the Brubaker run, though.
Yeah, he did the Brubaker run. He was one of the Outback X-Men as well. Mm-hmm. So I mean, he's popped up over different periods of time. Same thing with Kitty. When she's shown up, she's kind of come and gone. But she did a lot with Excalibur. Darwin was only a part of that one X-Men title, Rise and Fall of the Shi'ar Empire. Psylocke has been a part of the X-Men, sporadically throughout as well. Juggernaut obviously has been a villain for the majority of his history and has kind of popped in and out. Cannonball, like we said, New Mutants. In every iteration that they do, you can't do it without him. Sure. Polaris kind of follows Havoc wherever he goes. Mm-hmm. So, she's there. But I love all of these characters. I feel like they all bring something new and something different. And I just think that if you look at the X-Men lineups that they have out here now, the one title that they had where you had like the Colossus, Juggernaut, hybrid character, I forget what all the nicknames were for him, but it was like Cyclops, him, Magic, and some
was
other.
That on the Uncanny Kieran Gillen team, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. The reboot after 544, they just didn't seem like a team that worked. I know that the Havoc-led X-Men that had Juggernaut on it was kind of panned for the stories that they did, like the Draco. But
are you talking about? He also led the team during the Peter Milligan run, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah. So he's got some.
Yeah, he's got some runs. So,
is there, Anthony? Do you know what is the closest to either any of our teams actually being a team that was on a book?
Well,
are any of these particularly close to being a team that was ever on a book together?
So Storm, Nightcrawler, Rogue, and Gambit were all on a book together. They even did the Search for Professor X.
Okay.
So those four were on a team together. If you jump over to Chris's team, obviously he's got the core.
4 of the 5.
Yeah, exactly. Wolverine has been on. I mean, pick any X-Men book. Wolverine's been on the team, right? Forge has come and gone, and he's even played villain to a couple of the X-Men teams, but he's served on a team with all these characters, or the majority of these characters before, except for Sunspot. As far as the people on my team that have been on the same book together, Havoc, Darwin were on a team. Havoc, Darwin, and Polaris were on a team together. Uh, Juggernaut and Havoc were on a team together, and then outside of that, there's really Juggernaut, Havoc, and Polaris were on a team together. Outside of that, there weren't very many interactions. So as far as characters written together with history, yours is probably the closest with all those characters. So, but again, to me, that's the beauty of the X-Men because we've left off.
Yeah, you can mix and match, and there's people we haven't used.
Yeah, I mean, X-23, I'm sitting here looking at Captain Britain. I feel like he's a character that's never been on a core book that could be.
Is he a mutant, though? I mean, doesn't he really just get props because he's in X-Men, Excalibur? I mean, I would have picked him automatically, but my thing was I thought he's a magic talisman powered dude, so I didn't consider him one of the possible takes.
You know, and Madrox has been pretty key in some of the X Factor stuff. We didn't pick him, but he's another good character.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and nobody picked Professor X.
Yeah.
Which I wondered if we kind of were intentionally not picking him because he kind of overpowers the lineup a little bit. But
I've never been a fan of the character. I
don't like
you
him.
know. Yeah, I mean,
I guess that could be it. We just don't like him that much. Sorry, Professor X fans.
again, like it was okay when they were teenagers and he was the headmaster, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to me, once they got to Giant Size X-Men, he no longer served a function. Because it was like they graduated, there was a new school, new team of characters, and they all just kind of went about on their way. And to me, if you were talking about the best X-Men stories ever written, the majority of them don't have him. The majority of them
like,
don't
go ahead
have
and go
him.
off to space again, Professor X. We're okay.
Yeah.
Go see your
Right.
girlfriend. We got stuff to do
I mean,
here.
she's dead, right? So
I mean, I've only liked Professor X as played by Patrick Stewart, and really and that's in the entirety of all the comics that I've ever read. I'm like, well, I like Patrick Stewart playing Professor X. This makes him cool.
But most of
But
the
I
comics
really
don't
don't
like him.
I really don't
Okay.
care for him either. I mean, I don't. And you're right. There is no seminal story with Professor X where you're just like, that was so cool that Professor X was blah. No, not ever. Not for me anyway.
So, I mean, again, there was a lot of great X-Men that were left off. Madrox, depending on which era of him you prefer. A lot of the newer kids like X-23, Surge, that popped up with X-Men Academy X, Helion.
Deadpool. None of us took Deadpool.
Oh, Deadpool.
Yeah, Deadpool. He's the new Wolverine, right?
Yeah.
To me, Domino would be...
Interesting one to take, yeah.
Yeah, Domino is a character that I feel like, needs some fleshing out on an X-Men title, not just an X-Force title. Phantom X is a new character that I've really enjoyed as well. So
I thought about it as I was kind of going, as I hit Forge. I thought I could make this a weirdly eclectic team and do like Cypher and Warlock at the,
Sure.
and make it like the duo there. But I mean, yeah, there's some great characters.
No Banshee.
Out there. No Banshee. I thought about Banshee. Warpath / Thunderbird.
I thought about Warpath a couple times, too.
Yeah.
I think that he's a character that's due for a rebirth, right? Because I feel like he would play well in this current X-Men universe. The things that they were doing with him before he died, where he started the X-Corp, and they kind of had worldwide branches. I feel like he was a pretty good character during that, and they developed him. And I mean, his history with Interpol as well as with the original X-Men as well. You could do, again, some covert ops things. I feel like he'd fit really good on your team, Matt.
Yeah.
But I mean, the last time he was on an X-Men, an actual core X-Men title was Generation X, but he was serving as headmaster of the school, and then he went from that to the X-Corp situation. So it's really interesting to see how how he would fit in and play today. But I feel like he's a character that could come back easily and be integrated pretty seamlessly into the X-Men universe.
All right, cool. So you've heard our teams. I guess just as we wrap it up here, I'll go back over in case taking notes at home. Chris went with Wolverine, Jean Grey, Colossus, Magneto, Forge, Iceman, Beast, with his alternates of Angel and Sunspot. I went with Storm, Nightcrawler, Rogue, Emma Frost, Gambit, Phoenix, Cable, with alternates of Bishop and Cyclops. And Anthony has Havoc, Kitty Pryde, Darwin, Psylocke, Juggernaut, Cannonball, Polaris, with alternates of Justice and Firestar. So which team would you like? Which of those books would you read? Send us a message or tweet us at Danger Infinite on Twitter. Find us on Facebook at Infinite Danger Room, or shoot us an email at infinitedangerroom@gmail.com. We'll be back next week with more from the world of comics and film and whatever cool nerdy things we found since then. So thanks a lot for listening.